I do have two favorites to visit: India and Israel. And I've thought many times, because this is how your mind works and my mind works. Okay, Dennis, why are they so interesting, those two countries? They would seem to have very little in common other than starting with the letter I. And then I realized they're the only two countries in the world with their own religion. The Hindu country, I'm not talking, Sri Lanka, but the Hindu country is India. The Jewish country is Israel.
It's the soul country of the, yeah.
Yes, isn't that interesting? So it makes for a different world.
Right.
Obviously, Israel and India both very westernized, but and Israel more so. But still, in religious areas of Israel, you've entered another world. And in India, I mean, you could be walking down a beautiful street in some Indian city and window shopping, and you turn around and there's a cow next to you. That doesn't happen anywhere on Earth.
Oh gosh, I'm so excited to go to India one day.
You got to go to India.
So.
It begs the question: which was your least favorite country?
Okay. Sean's a troublemaker. I actually have an answer, but I'm not saying it.
Oh, come on. It's Dennis and Julie.
I'm sorry. It's not. If it was
Why?
just Dennis and Julie.
Why?
Because I don't want to insult a country.
You wouldn't be insulting a country.
I would.
Oh.
What is it, Ryan?
I'm so sorry to do this to the listeners, but the second we're done, I'm asking you.
No, I feel terrible because I say everything in public.
Okay, it's okay.
But the only reason is I have nothing against this particular country. I just didn't find it interesting. The people were nice. Okay.
I have a guess. No, actually, I'm not going to go there.
Okay. All right.
Anyway.
Yes. Okay.
So I thought you were going to say something a little different. So I've been to Israel, never been to India, but I was amazed when I went to Israel. Dazzled, transformed, and amazed. And of course, it's because of the religious. I mean, being in Jerusalem was like being in spiritual Disneyland. It was incredibly moving to me. And when people would say this, I would have respect for it, but I wouldn't quite understand what they were talking about when people would say that you feel the holiness, but you really do feel it in Jerusalem. So there's that. But really what dazzled me about Israel were the people. I was so taken aback in the best way by their vitality. Just every, the leaders of our trip who were Harvard Israeli students, the people we'd meet at restaurants, people we'd meet up out at clubs, at lectures, anything. They were so spirited. They were patriotic. They were real. They were tough, but they were fun. And I loved that, at every single dinner or meal, you raise a glass and you go, L'chaim, to life. And I realized that's really at the center of Israelis, that they know about life in a way that Americans don't, because they have to serve in the army and they have daily threats to their existence. I mean, everyone in Israel has had a relative who has died either in the Holocaust or, fighting in the IDF, especially now in a post, October 7th world. But I realized they have texture and nuance and understanding and vitality in a way that Americans don't. Americans, at least in my view, in comparison to Israelis, were very deadened and boring. What do you make of that?
There are many issues. First, let me start with the last one. Americans have become deadened.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It wasn't always that way
at all. The left has a deadening impact on people. Do you know, I can tell you in 2 minutes if a kid comes from a conservative home, if a kid was homeschooled, and you know what the most glaring characteristic is? They're not jaded.
Oh yeah.
Jaded is deadened. So we'll put the American part aside. I like Israelis.
I love Israelis.
Well, you love them, and I totally get it. Often people come back, I love Israel, I love Israel, I love Israel, and I'm glad they do, obviously, and I get it. But you are right about Israelis. And they're flawed like every other human being.
Of course, yes.
But you are right. Do you know that Israel, prior to October 7th, was regularly voted among the happiest countries in the world, and by far the happiest in the Middle East?
Why is that, in your view?
Because they're very life-affirming.
Yes.
And that I give credit to Judaism. L'chaim is not to life. I mean, people who see Fiddler on the Roof probably know the song, to life, l'chaim, 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 to life. There is a tremendous life-centered aspect to Judaism. Judaism believes in an afterlife, but it is overwhelmingly preoccupied with making this a good and happy life.
Well, one of the things that you taught me is that, is it in the Talmud or other rabbinic tradition where there are 5 questions that God will ask
Talmud,
you when you die?
Yes.
And one of them is, why did you not partake in the joys of life?
In every permitted pleasure.
In every permitted pleasure.
Right. It's a sin not to enjoy life. Isn't that amazing?
It really is amazing.
And they have children. It's how many Western countries are they reproducing and then some their own population?
Listen, I totally agree with you about the deadening nature of the left. And by the way, I want to say quickly, because a few minutes ago I said that it would behoove left-wing Americans to know that their reality is not the norm. What I really meant was leftists. As you often say, liberals are different from leftists. And so in this conversation, I also agree that the left, as in leftist project in America, has been very deadening. However, I do think that another component of this, of our deadening, is that we have been swaddled in prosperity and security and affluence. And thank God we have been. All of us are the beneficiaries of that, but I think it has made us spoiled. Liberal, conservative, left-wing, all of us. I think it has made us spoiled and disconnected from the reality of life, and thus deadened in a way that Israelis are not. Because Israelis have daily threats to their existence. We don't, by comparison. I mean, that's changing now. You know, the reality in America with crime, with fentanyl, all of that is changing things. But you take my point that we've really been, we've had it pretty damn good for the past few decades here. Certainly compared to Israel. So I think that's where a lot of the vitality comes from.
So, you know, this really is an intelligent point.